I'd like to call this meeting to order, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I flag. All right, public comment will occur during the public comment portion of the meeting and is done via raising your hand remotely or in person. During public comment, once acknowledged, please state your name and ward so that it can be included in the minutes, and please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment is governed by policy BEDH. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda?
Sure, I would like to add a non-public session after item 8C. After 9A.
Sorry. Yes. Thanks. That was my fault. Thank you. All right, so we'll open up the room for public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? Please come on up.
Good evening. My name is Yvette Garnham. I think I know most of you, but I am one of the music teachers here at Lebanon Middle School. I wanted to come in and speak today because I know there's a lot of anxiety around changes at Lebanon Middle School for next year. Personally, I am really excited about these changes. When the middle school opened in 2012, there are a lot of questions about how to run the band and choir program, where to put us in the day. We have struggled to find time to meet and give the students a thorough music education. And the schedule will allow us to meet with our students every day for a full class period. I'm looking forward to the growth the students will make throughout their 4 years in choir or band. We'll be able to teach music literacy, continue to work on tone, blend, and overall musicianship. Our students will be proficient on their instrument or voice and more prepared for continued growth at the high school. Change is really hard, and all students at LMS need a place where they can belong. With the EA program, they will have lots of choices, and I know each of the teachers will build a program that is also a community. I'm confident that our music program will flourish and continue to be a strength in Lebanon. I fully trust Tom Harkins, Aaron Mills, and the scheduling committee, and know we are looking out for the best interest of all our students. I encourage parents, students, and board members to reach out to us as educators with any questions. Thank you.
Is there any additional public comment in the room? No. Is there any online?
There is none online.
Okay, we'll close public comment for now. Do not see our student report, so we'll move on. Correspondence.
We got a letter expressing gratitude for the school board statement on display at LHS, and another letter from a parent providing input regarding the new LMS EA choice schedule presented last week.
Great, thank you. If we move on to our consent agenda, we need a motion to approve the minutes from May 14th, non-public minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 14th.
I will second that motion.
Okay, motion by John, second by Richard. Are there any corrections to the public minutes from May 14th? Great. Oh. All right. We need a motion for the non-public minutes. Sorry?
We should vote on that.
Oh, wait, so vote on the, you're right. All right, first, I was so excited that we didn't have corrections. Got distracted. All right, all those in favor of approving the public minutes from May 14th? Objections? All right, thank you. Unanimous.
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public minutes from May 14th.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by John, second by Richard. Are there any corrections to those? All right, all those in favor of accepting the non-public minutes? Great, unanimous. Excellent. All right, that brings us to the SAU leadership team update.
Good evening. I have a brief update tonight. The end of year activities are in full swing. Last week we had great musical performances at the Lebanon Opera House, and there's lots of celebrations in the next coming week. We are currently watching the 4 pending pieces of legislation related to open enrollment. The Senate Finance Committee is meeting this week to continue budget discussions and to determine what happens with enrollment in the budget. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge Hanover Street Elementary School teacher Mandy Sane, who was just awarded the Exceptional Educator of the Year Award on behalf of the New Hampshire Down Syndrome Association. So congratulations to Mandy and all her work, and that concludes my update.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent? I skipped over something. We need to go back to approve the nominations, renominations, and acknowledge resignations and retirements. Can I get a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to approve the nominations, resignations from May 28th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Motion by John, second by Richard. Does anyone have any questions about the nominations and resignations? I have a question. Anne Marie Stout returning to our district. What grade level? Is that 7th and 8th or? Okay,
7th and 8th.
7th?
Both, 7th and 8th.
Combo. Okay, great. Thanks. And we're sad to see all these people go. We're sad to see Miss Cook go. Is she going to school?
I believe she's going on for a master's program.
Great. Questions? All right, all those in favor of accepting the nominations and resignations? Unanimous, thank you. All right, we're back on track. Going to the business administrator update.
Good evening. I included in your report, in your packet, a financial report, expenditures like usual, and also revenues. I wanted to spend a little bit of time going on revenues as far as expenditures. We're looking good. We talked a little bit with finance facilities the other day about sort of a year-end picture. And so as you can see in my narrative, that the year-end list that we will ask for your approval will be coming to the board in June. But I don't see any significant issues on the expenditure side. On the revenue side, overall, we're a little lower than budgeted, about $78,000 less, which overall isn't too bad. But I wanted to go over some of the revenues just so you saw them. The list I put in your packet didn't quite highlight like I wanted it to, so I apologize for that. But if you're going down, looking down the right-hand side, I wanted to point out a few things. Impact fees. We budget $75,000. That's money we get from new building in the city. We budgeted $75,000. It's always, it's just hard to know what the budget. We've budgeted more this year than ever, but we still received so far $187,000. That's $112,000 to the good, which is good.
And we're doing our best to approve as many building projects just for you guys.
Well, that's good because our tuition, I estimated it, when I estimate tuition during the budget season, I reach out to the schools, see who they think is coming to our fine establishment. That came out to 5.3 million, but we actually are going to receive about 5.1 million, so they overestimated. So that's a negative 244. But you can see we have some regular ed tuition out of state LEA. That'd be someone that comes from Vermont, obviously, $105,000 up. The other thing, the really good thing is we budget $80,000 earnings on investment, so that's not the earnings we get from our cap reserve fund, but the earnings we get from our operating funds. And so far, we received 206. We're probably going to get around 224. So it's good. Going down a little bit, the other local revenue, the minus 132. I just wanted to point out that's really just an accounting thing. So when we have when our insurance company gives us a premium holiday, they call it, they can only keep so much money in reserve, and School Care gives you a premium holiday, so they take the price off the cost of the premium every month. Our auditors don't want us to book the cost of the bill. They want us to book the cost of the health care if there was no premium holiday, and then put it in the revenue side. So we had a smaller premium holiday this year than we budgeted for, but we also had the expenses aren't inflated, artificially inflated. So that's really that. I think I estimated we were going to get around 250 during budget season, and our premium holiday was 98,000 or whatever the math is. So it's really an accounting thing there. We received a little bit more special ed aid than we budgeted for, which is good, and that's just to remind you that looks back. So I'm given from DRA an estimate of 192, 184, but they give you a range. I always take the lowest part of the range, and It's looking backward a year on your actual costs, so we ended up with 251. And the last thing is Medicaid, and Ben and I have talked a lot about this. I've always budgeted $200,000 for Medicaid reimbursement, and I can show you some history, but we generally have been, over the last 13 years since I've been here, we've been in and around $200,000 except for twice. So it's generally a pretty good number, but this year we're way off. So we're hoping to recover at least $30,000 to make our total $34,000. But we're going to systems and maybe we're just doing less Medicaid type care, but we actually think we just need to be on top of making sure that people are putting their hours in and stuff into the system. So I guess that's a promise that I can't win on that. It's a promise that we're working on making sure that doesn't happen again. It's unfortunate. Anyways, a negative 78,000, which all in all isn't so bad. And again, that's still there's some estimates in there. If you see a number in the receivable that's in italics, that's my best estimate versus an actual number. I don't really know what we're going to make on investments for the rest of May, June, but 18,000 seems to be a good number of statements, for example. All that together, so you take your unexpended money, and if there's extra revenue, you add that in there too. This year doesn't look like we'll have extra revenue. The unexpended money is the dollar amount that we're talking about for end of year projects in a couple weeks. Questions, comments? That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. So that brings us to our Director of Academic Engagement and Opportunity.
Sure, actually, it's going to be a collaborative effort. I think Tyler's going to cue us up here. I'm going to kick us off. So as we had promised, we are going to do an overview of our federal grant funding. We're going to talk about what we're getting this year currently, the year that we're in, what we've got in years past, and kind of talk about the road ahead. So I think Tim has got the next slide.
Yeah, just sort of as a matter of orientation. So on our current budget, all funds for fiscal year 25 is $55,056,420. About 2.2% of that is federal grant, so almost $1.3 million. As we're going through these slides, so it can get a little confusing, so hopefully it's not. When you're going through these slides and you see allocations, they're generally in 2-year chunks. But when we talk about the budget year to year, we talk about how much money we spend in one fiscal year. So I haven't actually seen if the math adds up. If you had all grants together, does come 1.3, probably not. But you got to remember the numbers you're going to see are 2-year numbers, 2 years to spend them. All right, so that's 2.2. That's a pie graph of the same thing. Karen.
Sorry, I pushed this button to talk, yes? Okay, I'm usually up there. So this graphic just depicts how federal grant funding flows to us here in our SAU. When funds are released to US Ed, they distribute them to the states. That's that SEA, the State Educational Agency. In our case, that's NHED. They then portion the funds for each of the grants out to the LEA, that's the Local Education Agency, that's SAU 88, and then we administer those grants to distribute them to our schools. We receive, in recent years, we've benefited from the following grants. Title I, which is focused on improving academic achievement for all students. Title II, Title IIA, which provides support for educator growth and development. Title III, language instruction for English language learners. Title IV, student support and academic enrichment. And Title V, a special title grant that is allocated to rural and low-income schools. In addition, Ben Nestor will join us to talk about IDEA for our pre-K program. We also receive federal grant funds for food services and adult education. This graph just shows gives you a sense of sort of the proportions of our total grant funding pie that fall into each of those categories. And we're going to continue through the presentation and just walk you through each of these grants in a very sort of at the 10,000-foot level. But before we do that, it's important to understand a key component of federal grant funding. There's a principle that applies to these funds, that they must supplement, not supplant, our general education funds. So simply put, what that means is that we as a school district need to provide for our students in a robust manner to meet their needs. Federal grant funds come into play to provide additional benefit to our students, but they must not be used to alleviate the burden on the taxpayers to meet the needs of the students. So our next slide shows sort of a great graphic that Emma Wunsch came up with for us. The cake is everything that we provide for our students to ensure that they get the education that they need and deserve. With federal grants, look how much fancier and better the cake can be. To be clear, their needs would be met with the cake, but it's so much more of a rich and dynamic experience with the frosting. That's the federal grant funding. The upshot of this, however, of this principle of supplement, not supplant, is that once we build something, often it's a staffing position, into our general fund, the district is then not able to cut that position from our general fund and fund it with federal grant monies. Here's a tangible example. If we employ 2 reading specialists at the middle school, we cannot decide through our careful budgeting to trim one of those positions and then re-employ somebody in that capacity using federal grant funds the following year. That would be supplanting. Everything must be its own program that exists essentially on top of what we provide to our students through the general fund. An additional provision that applies to all of the title grants is that an equitable services provision. There's a lot of verbiage here, but basically that means that students who attend independent schools but reside in Lebanon are entitled to take part in the benefit of these federal grants. For practical purposes, what that means for us is we have very few independent schools operating in Lebanon. We have a new one, the New England School of the Arts. I just had my equitable services meeting with Jennifer Chambers, the head of that program, this morning. They have just 2 Lebanon students among their population. As such, their portion of our grant funding for the year ahead, and this was the case for the current year as well, would be so small that they're simply declining to participate. So it's not a big factor for us currently, but could be in the future. In general, this law means that, particularly for the title funds, so all of the funds we're going to talk about that have the word title in front of them, we need to budget in tandem with independent schools should there ever come to be more of them or a higher proportion of students in our district. So Title 1A, when we looked at that pie chart, Title I was a very big piece of pie. Title I provides resources to schools that have the highest percentage of students and families in poverty. And the metric that they use to gauge that is the percentage of the student body that's receiving free and reduced lunch. It's not a 100% accurate metric, but it's widely used, really nationally used as a stand-in for poverty, as the key poverty indicator used by public schools. Title I provides support for at-risk students. It also provides funding for meaningful parent and family engagement and support for students experiencing homelessness and those that are children of migrant families. Yes?
Sorry, do you recall from the pie chart what percentage it actually is currently?
Of the total pie
Yeah.
of, sure, I have that chart right here.
Thank you.
Let me flip back.
Our pie is black.
And in a minute, I'll show you the actual amounts of money that are our allocation.
Okay.
My pie chart printed in black and white,
So is
making
ours.
it
We just can't see it in black
not
and white.
possible. Could we just go back to that pie chart?
Thank you.
There we are. This isn't a graphic I created. So food services is that big blue chunk. And IDEA pre-K is the big orange chunk. Does it? Can somebody read the chunk that is lime green at the bottom there? Title I or ID?
Title 1 is 29.8.
Title I. Okay.
I apologize, but can you just for them?
Hover over all of them.
IDA. And again, some of this may take on.
Push your button.
This
Just push
little-
it
when-
once
this-
and let
when-
you-
When this little light is on,
Then
that's
it's
when your
on.
microphone is on.
Now
That's
it's off.
That's
Now it's on.
This light up here.
My fingers were hurting. I thought I had to just hold it down the whole time. Goodness me. So some of this may take on additional sort of relevance or context as we go through, and there's tangible dollar amounts attached to each one. So focusing in on Title I again, the funding is based on the percentage of students receiving free and reduced lunch in each of our schools. There are two different pathways, broadly speaking, that Title I can provide assistance to schools. If schools have greater than 40% students receiving free and reduced lunch, they fall into a different category. None of our schools reach that threshold, so we are targeted assistance schools. This means that we are substantially constrained in how we can use these funds. We must set academic criteria. We must rank students on the basis of this criteria and serve them in order of that ranking. And then anyone that we employ with these Title I funds can only work in service of those specific students in that rank order. It makes it such that the money is tied to those students pretty tightly. So we're not able to, for example, buy a bunch of new curriculum materials with the money to supplement our existing curriculum materials for all students. Anything we purchase has to be used only by those students that are in that rank order and by the teachers that are employed by this grant. We can't provide professional growth or professional development opportunities to the entire staff. We can only provide it to the staff members that are working with these students in the context of them working with these students. So if you look at this, gives you a sense of our funding over the past 3 years. These are the amounts that are allocated to us. If you think back to that flow chart about how federal grant money flows to our district, this is the amount that NHED used their algorithm and calculated that we receive. We're allowed to roll a small percentage of it from year to year if we don't fully deploy it. In SAU 88 currently, as of this year, we employ 2.8 full-time positions. That is 1.8 elementary math teachers and 1 elementary reading specialist. Together, that's 2.8. We also provide summer programming for our Title I students, and we provide transportation for students who are experiencing homelessness. When we have sufficient funds, we did this year, we actually were able to provide supplies for those Title I programs both last year and this year. And this year, we're actually able to hire an additional academic interventionist working part-time at each of our elementary schools for the last 6 months of the school year. And that's how we deploy those funds. Yes, Jessica.
So I just want to get this really clear in my head. So we can't supplant, we can supplement.
Yep.
Right words? So when we say 1.8 elementary math teachers are funded by Title I,
Yes.
Are they math teachers we don't need?
paint a picture for me of what that means.
So those are elementary math. You can think of them as math specialists.
Okay.
Our particular teachers there's a credentialing significance to the word teacher versus specialist that's not relevant to our discussion here today. But they work with students who are not yet meeting academic benchmarks in math. It is accurate to say that at the moment, we do not employ elementary math specialists as part of our general fund.
So if we didn't have them, what, just again, so that I can understand how, the nature of supplement versus supplant. If we did not have them, what would happen with students who are not meeting our benchmark?
Our classroom teachers would differentiate their instruction to meet those needs.
So to the extent that classrooms are having, different math groups, there would be like an additional math group that would be addressed within the classroom.
So currently, all of our intervention services are meant to be provided, our goal is to provide them in addition to what's happening during the classroom. So for the most part, although it can be true that these math specialists occasionally push into the classroom to, for example, co-teach, as you're saying, and work with one group or another, it is more typical because, again, their funding is tied tightly to Title I students that are rank ordered and they have to serve them in that order. They tend to work with those students outside of their regular math class time in a supplemental time outside of the room. Most of our services are provided on a pull-out basis at the moment. It's not to say that's the only way to do it.
Okay.
It's the way that we currently do it.
just
So
to be-
those services would not happen.
Just to be clear, I'm only trying to
Yep.
really grasp this, not make,
It's
these are not
important-
pointed questions, they are simply
No, that's,
understanding
and it is
questions.
important to understand that. It's, for what it's worth, it's typical for the role of a math specialist or math interventionist is more recent in its evolution in the last maybe 15 years relative to reading specialists. So it would be typical, I would say, other educators in the room can chime in. If an elementary school has to make strategic staffing decisions, generally speaking, reading specialists are hired broadly and are required. You have to have a reading specialist. You do not have to have a math interventionist.
And Title I, it sounds like, again, Title I, do we say there are Title I students?
We work hard not to label students by
Not
their
to say
title
that.
status, but it is accurate that behind the scenes, it is a requirement of the grant that we rank students and provide services to them in the order of that list.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, and this is enormously helpful so far, so thank you.
Great, I am glad. It's enormously complicated, at least from my perspective. The next few parts are a little less complicated. You ready for that? Title II. Title IIA funds are devoted to preparing and supporting educators. Broadly speaking, this is for educator professional growth and development. If we advance to the next slide, you can see this is, in absolute dollar terms, not nearly as much as Title I. It's a nice chunk of money for us to use, and it does represent the primary source that we lean on for district initiatives in relation to professional growth and development. So when we think about, for example, our new strategic plan, which has a robust amount of professional growth and development goals embedded in it, this is the money that we would typically turn to for that. And we do not have a parallel pot of money, so to speak, in the general fund. Tim and Amy, chime in if you feel I'm getting any of this wrong. We do, of course, have the LEA funds that individual educators can use for their own professional growth.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say, is the money, the PD money in the general fund is generally union associated around the CBAs, besides it.
Yes.
So a lot of it is aligned to the teacher's professional goals, which could be different than the district goals, because they
Right.
create their own goals in their individual professional learning plan.
The teachers have a lot of discretion over those funds, whereas these are directed by the district. Here are some examples of great things that we've done with this money in the last few years. We've attended project-based learning conferences. Another team will go out to a great project-based learning conference at the end of this month. We provide direct instruction to teachers around our new curriculum resources. We did that when we adopted a new math resource, and for all of the English language arts curricula that we've embraced in the last few years with our elementary educators. CPM Math is the instructional model and set of tools that we use for grades 8 through 12. They have come and provided professional growth and development training that's been wonderful for our teachers. Other items are sort of listed below that were lower cost, but nonetheless really significant for our district. Does anyone have any questions about Title II?
These, correct me if I'm wrong, so these are often things that are happening, not always, but sometimes things that are happening outside of our normal budgeting schedule in some ways, like new initiatives, things that we're recognizing there's a need and we have to meet the need immediately, like science of reading, for instance, so those kinds of things. Sometimes they're happening, we know that they're going to happen, but often not. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sometimes they are unexpected. Sometimes they are teacher-driven. The CPR initiative was a low-cost initiative, but that's brought a ton of benefit to our district. A teacher came to me and said, how about you train me to become a CPR trainer? And we've gotten, I think, over 50 staff members trained in CPR in the last year. It's really been terrific. But that's a small example, but as you say, some of these are unexpected. Some of them are expected, and this is the money that we turn to. Often these events need to happen in the summer when we don't pay educators to be here. So having an opportunity to provide them with a stipend to join training is a powerful incentive for them to participate in professional growth during their time off from their work with the district. We're up to Title III, which I think my colleague Ben Nestor is going to talk about. And then I'll chime back in after. You can sit. I learned you don't have to lean on the button the whole time. Just as a tip.
Got it. So Title III is fairly self-explanatory. We use it to support our English language learners. What we've historically used it for is things like summer school, the MATSAL conference, and a little bit of it goes to the family engagement potluck that we typically have at Mount Lebanon School. Yeah, thank you. Interestingly, Title III, there's not a lot of money coming from the federal government on this, so districts do have to apply to be part of a cohort. We've applied to be part of a cohort for FY26. Shaylee Briggs and Rebecca Werdak get some majority of the credit for that. The last communication I had with the state, which was last week, should we click that? Yep. Was that it's good news that we received our Title I funding, or we will be receiving our Title I funding. It bodes well for this, but it is still in question. Right. Again, not a lot of funds attached to it, as you can see there from our last allocation. Next slide, please.
All right, Title IV is a fund of money that the district declined for a number of years, but we've, since Amy came on board, we've reinvigorated our use of this funding stream. It's devoted to student support and academic enrichment. It's probably the most complicated grant of the title grants to use, just because it covers such a broad range in three buckets. A portion of it must be used to support well-rounded students. That can mean anything from supporting students in taking driver's ed who might not otherwise be able to purchasing a wood router for the LMS wood shop, or a mobility bike for students in the PE program at the high school. Safe and healthy students is really in our district, because we don't have unsafe schools. We often devote that to social and emotional wellness initiatives. And then the effective use of technology, critically, you can't use that to actually purchase the technology. You can use a tiny, tiny percentage of it to buy hardware. It's mostly about learning around the effective use of technology.
Sorry, does that mean like maintenance?
Pardon?
Does that mean maintenance of what we have instead of?
Yeah, it's interesting. No, it's challenging to understand. So what we can do is bring forth an initiative around student learning and technology. It's tricky to figure out what you can spend that piece of money on. Here's an example. we were able to bring an AI tool that's safe and controlled for students to use and for teachers to use, and do some professional learning and growth around whether that is, to determine whether that is or is not a good tool for us to use. And in that context, we could pay for the tool because it's not physical, and we could pay a stipend to trainers, in-house trainers. In this case, we had some faculty that were qualified to provide that training, but we couldn't buy a laptop with it. Does that make sense? It's a tricky thing to use. This year, we've paid stipends to teachers to become Google certified educators, and then design, but critically, they have to then take it to the students, so they must also then design a lesson related to the new learning. So it's not just purely for educator professional growth. Yes?
Am I correct that federal grants are the responsibility of, are essentially at the discretion of superintendent, what we apply for?
We're allocated, so the New Hampshire Department of Ed will hopefully give us allocations. And then if we can write we can write the grant application for that. So in the past, we've always had Title I money on the books. The former administration chose not to use that money.
In other words,
Title IV,
let me see if I can see what you're asking. These are the grants we've spoken of so far are not competitive grants. So we don't have to apply and compete with other districts for this Title IV money. It is allocated to us every year for a time. This specific pot of money, again, because I'll spare you the details, but it's complicated to use it across these three buckets and to determine what sorts of technology use you might find, and you can't use the other two buckets of money without using the technology use. For all those complicated reasons, for a time the district declined the allocation.
So for the title funds, federal title grants, you are determined to be eligible for a certain amount, a certain allocation of a federal title grant through this, and it's then the superintendent's decision whether to accept or decline?
Yeah, we'd have to go ahead with grant applications. So as we get these allocations in our grant management system, so for Title I, we'll get an allocation. Karen has to go in and make sure we have a Title I plan. I know you'll see a Title I parent and family engagement policy. So she has to go through, put all of those documents in. You have to put your general assurances in, and then we have to write grant activities that are related to a needs assessment that's been completed. And from there, the Department of Ed will either approve or substantially approve or reject the grant and send back for feedback. So there's a little bit of a process there that we have to do for the grants.
I think I'm just trying to understand the nature of the relationship in terms of us and federal money. Like in terms of, are we, is this done to us? Are we accepting it? Are we pursuing it? Are we, and I'm just trying to understand, because they make it so clear about sort of supplement versus supplant, and there's a sort of a clear complexity there that I'm just trying to make sure that I understand. Not asking pointed questions, only asking informational.
I think historically, the district has accepted most of these grants. Like I said, Title IV was relatively new within the last 10 years, and it is a complicated application, and it was just the former administration chose not to pursue that. There is a way to, if you are getting under a certain amount, you can move it to another grant, which some districts do, but then you put yourself up for an audit for a flag. So
there's complexities to this that we're trying to spare you, but that's a great one. So it might be, if you look at the absolute dollar amount, $45,000 in 2023. The year before that, I would imagine it was something like $42,000. It's a legitimate decision to forego $42,000 because it might cost you $42,000 of manpower or women power to deploy it. And so I think that was the decision at the time.
So am I correct, not a suggestion, informational question, we could say, we don't want the Title I money of 387,000, however much it is
Yes,
in a year.
that's an excellent question. The district could decide simply not to use the money. In fact, it's common for small to mid-sized districts to moderately underdeploy a lot of their money, especially in Title I, because they're over-allocated by the state. They can't actually make fruitful use of the entire allocation over the course of the year, and whatever's not expended by the district returns to the state, and NHED then uses it to provide all those sorts of interesting programs that you might see if you receive their Friday Forum, things like access to Conmigo or various other initiatives that NHED brings forth. My understanding is that a great number of those are funded by federal grant title funds that aren't fully deployed by the districts that they're allocated to.
Thank you.
And it would be absolutely the case that a district could, although I think it would be unusual, decide not to use any of
Yes,
these
again,
things. Is that accurate, Amy?
Yeah, I would just say that the whole supplement versus supplant discussion, underlying that was that sort of thing. So we don't want to take Title I money, we'll do our own math, and
Right.
well, then you can't go back and use title money for it later because you've decided to put it in your.
Yes,
So
thank you.
that's-
Again, this is
Yeah.
purely just, this is enormously complex, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding how this functions. Thank
These
you.
are great questions, and it's the purpose of our presentation here today. To be clear, each of these grants, as Amy was explaining, you have to carefully craft specific activities under the umbrella of each of the grants once you receive the award, and then do follow-up to take data to assess whether those grants have been, there are a lot of hoops to jump through to use money, rightly so, because they want to make sure that it's being put to effective use and appropriate use according to the law. Okay. Our final bucket of money is Title V. This is really the simplest to explain. It's a special award for rural and low-income school programs where we qualify because we are considered rural. And it is simply an additional pot of money that can be deployed under any of the previously mentioned title grants. So it's just extra money that we can put towards Title II or Title I or Title III on the years that we're awarded that one. It's just extra money that you use in the other title buckets. Should we move on to IDEA and pre-K? Okay.
I would like to recommend that we use the Title IV money to buy some remote control shades. Maybe. Just a thought. I thought I was going to be, a hero and roll the shades down, and Tom reminded me that that does not work. So IDEA, let's go to the next slide, Tyler or Amy. So you can see the history of our allocations there, and you can see how we currently use the grant money. It's essentially staff, 3 teachers, partial funding of an early childhood educator at Mount Lebanon School. And then we work with an individual and a consultation or a company that offers consultation around behavior. And then there's a stipend for the high school special ed coordinator. Our allocation for FY26 is $434,000 and change. We received that, I think it was last week. So that's good news. That's what we could expect, so I don't anticipate any issues in terms of the IDEA grant.
Any questions about IDA? So that is the only money that right now we have in our grants management for next fiscal year 26. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the Federal Department of Ed and the New Hampshire Department of Ed have been delayed on giving allocations, which has made things difficult because some of our grants begin July 1st.
I have a question.
Yes.
It lists here 1 early childhood educator. I know that we have 2 preschool teachers at Mount Leb. Does that
Yeah.
mean one of their livelihoods is tied to this grant at this point?
In part. So
Okay.
the pre-K allocation So like of that, if you look there, of that 428,000, about 12,000 is dedicated to pre-K only. That's how we have to use the money. So that prorated amount is about, funds about $12,000 towards that individual salary. The rest is local monies.
Thank you.
Yep, sure.
Is the IDEA money still covered by the supplement, don't supplant
Yeah.
rule? Okay.
Yeah, same rules pretty much apply. There's a little less accountability in terms of like monitoring the grant and showing data to indicate that the monies were used. There's a little more scrutiny with some of the title grants, but it's very, it's the same process. We have to be approved by the state. And in my experience, the IDEA grant is usually very vanilla. It's almost always dedicated to staff, which is what we've historically done here in Lebanon.
And we have to provide special ed services to our local charter school if we have students there who are identified in need of services. And if they were in private schools, those services would have to be under that equitable service under a different formula as well.
So are there requirements to provide special education to that? Where does that requirement?
It's a federal law.
It's a federal.
Yeah, it's federal IDA.
So I guess then, how is it that the federal law, but we have to pay locally, but we supplement ID? Yes?
Right. When the IDA passed, I think there was a set amount that the federal government should be giving to the state. That has never ever came to fruition in the same amount of the state giving it to the district. So when we talk about not getting our full special ed aid, that is sort of historically gone on for 30 years.
Okay.
Interesting question. So one of the many requirements is every year I have to prove to the government that we are spending, essentially, I'm making this real simple, essentially spending more state and local money this year than last year. Otherwise, it's called maintenance of effort. So not only is there a loss and you have to do IDEA and they only give you 428, but I have to actually show that we're spending enough local money in order to be eligible for this 428. So, like if we spend $7 million this year and $6 million next year, I'd have to explain why we spent $1 million less. Like they expect it to go up, and I have to show that in a spreadsheet.
And if you ever don't spend a single dollar, they'll say, "Oh, I guess you didn't need extra money on tops."
Not exactly where, yes.
Right. So I think next up is food services.
Yeah,
which
so
is
food services is federal money, totally different department. It is not Department of Education. It is USDA. There are many food service programs that the USDA runs, including ones that are not in public schools. So like we participate in the fresh fruits and vegetable program and the federal school lunch program. Those rules are very specific and different than any other programs. There are programs for summers. There are programs for non-public schools. So those are the two we participate in. And generally, so you can see in 23 and 24, we received about 322 and just under 300. So for this year, I put in that we're on pace to get the same amount of money. When I say our budget is $800,000, it's a reimbursement program. So our food service provider every year, they have to put a budget together, estimating meals and estimating food costs and estimating labor costs. So the $800,000 is what I put on the warrant to make sure we cover enough. But our actual costs are dependent on those factors, how many meals we sell. Obviously, we sell more meals, we spend more in food, but our labor costs are pretty steady. So we want to maximize meals, but if we do sell less meals, we at least save a little money on food. The rest of the the rest of your revenue comes from anytime your child goes and buys a hamburger or something, all the a la carte stuff helps us a lot. The federal reimbursement, they give you a reimbursement rate per meal for anyone who's free and reduced eligible. Even if you're free and reduced eligible, if you buy something a la carte, you have to pay for it. Adults can buy meals. And frankly, as you know, since just after COVID, we've been putting in general fund has been supplementing the food service fund somewhere between 75 and last year it was $92,000. So we're not recovering between people paying for meals and money we get from the federal government. We're not recovering the cost of the food. The reimbursement isn't. I just want one more thing. The reimbursement is a set price per meal, and it's set at the beginning of the year, and we can only charge based on this tool they give us. It has to be in relation to that. So to call it a reimbursement is generous because it's not like saying, hey, these are our costs, reimburse us for this. Rather, you get $3.25 a meal or whatever. But it's obviously it's not a small chunk.
Can you repeat at the beginning of your breakdown, you said there are 2 programs we are involved in?
We participate in the National School Lunch Program and SLP, and we do, if every year we apply to participate, all these you have to do an application, and it's pretty much rubber stamp, but the Fresh Fruits and Vegetable Program, FFVP, that's a program that gives snacks out in the beginning of the day, and you'll hear during budget time, that is a year-by-year eligibility, school-by-school eligibility for elementary, and we generally, most times, both elementary schools qualify. But there has been a couple of years that Mount Leb has not, and so Mount Leb usually carries about $15,000 in general fund, provide snacks in case they don't qualify. Usually, the last several years, that's basically been returned as part of the fund. When I say we have $1 million left, that's part of that money.
Thank you.
All right, next up is adult education. I included this there because adult ed comes from federal, state, and local funding. So you see the allocations for the last 3 years where we are. So we employ 1 full-time director, a part-time teacher, a part-time long-distance learning educator, part-time tester, part-time paraeducator, part-time counselor. For those, we talked about this before, our grant will be up at the end of 2026. We would be eligible to write a new grant in January 2026. We currently serve, excuse me, the English language adult ed program. So Claremont had our other 16 and plus adult ed program. They did not write their grant application, decided to put it into their general fund, and then just notified the state they won't be offering any services next year at all. So, excuse me. So starting July 1, there won't be an adult ed 16 plus program in the region, and the closest will be Keene or Berlin. So we've been working with the state on this. Colby Price has started with our full-time director. As of recent, I had a meeting with a representative from the Department of Ed. It is unclear if adult education for English learners was included in the president's budget, but there is some state money in the budget currently, but we're watching that closely. So interestingly, although we're funded through to the end of this fiscal year, there's a potential that this money could be held back if it does not get into the president's budget.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a weird one in how we talked about whether you're allocated money or whether it's competitive, and you'll see that in a couple of slides. So this is sort of competitive. So the state has divided up into regions, and they asked for RFPs. Hey, we want to provide adult ed in this region. Who wants to bid on it? And we, as mentioned, we partnered with Claremont in 2017 to bid on all these services. We had the adult part. Claremont, sort of falling apart. So it is not like it's not like Title or IDEA where they're like, ta-da, you have $350,000. Tell us how you want to spend it. But rather, we had to put a bid together for it. There was not any really issue either, though. So it's kind of weird. But it is something that every 3 years the state looks for money, and there's federal money. There's more state money. You see the total budget's $170. Your general fund puts in $15,000. So the difference between $15,000 plus $46,000 is at $60,000. So $110,000 of state money in that program too. So it's a kind of a mashup.
Sorry. For the adult education, do we have a kind of idea of is it numbers affiliated as well with when you're doing the bidding process? Or they're just kind of like
Yeah.
regionally observing where they're,
Right, they broke the state up into regions, and I don't know if they use, like, we think, I don't know what the rationale was, I don't think it was based on how many non-English speakers we think are in a region, so they just broke it up in geographic regions, and if you are an adult looking to learn English in the Lebanon area, we're the spot for it. Tell a state, or you go into state, they have a website that says, we're supposed to provide all those non-English. I mean, there's other private stuff, like I know Dartmouth runs their, or the state.
Right. And it's our catchment area, so we service Claremont,
Yeah, yeah.
Enfield, so anybody but Vermont. So the states are very clear that we can't share students or resources. I think next one is the competitive grant slide. Tim, did you want
Do
to
you
cover
want me
that?
to? Nope. Okay.
Or one of, I forgot who was it.
So there's a bevy of competitive, so unlike the other ones that you're granted, we get notifications saying, hey, there's money out there for X. And these are some of the ones that we've done in the last couple of years. So we always get notified by the state, but there's usually federal money down there. So everything we do with the federal government, really, state. So when we did the project at the high school, some of you guys probably remember this, there was money, and the maximum we could get was $100,000. So we submitted some of the building plans for the entryway at the high school, and they gave us $100,000. And you can see right then, the transportation aid, this was just announced, I guess it was announced a while ago, but they didn't have enough takers, so they re-announced it in spring. So they went back into how much money we spent on transporting kids to Hartford, and they gave us an additional $20,000 this year. There was another Safe Round grant, that's of course, that gave us 15 grand for cameras at the. So you can see there's a bunch of other opportunities for money. Just today, actually, I just have it, Amy just signed paperwork. There's a grant program for food service equipment, and we're hoping we'll win, and we'll be able to get a new steamer and a new oven at the schools. So we don't know if we'll get it right away, but we're just looking for opportunities.
So I want to thank the team, too. They've been great as these opportunities come up. So if we can think of ways for one-time funds to offset our operating budget and things that we would be looking for. So, the small amount for $1,288, our unified basketball team needed new uniforms. So it was a quick grant application, but just an opportunity to provide more for the district. So final slide, I know Karen had a supplement
Yeah,
paper
before
too,
we
so
get to the final one, there's just a little add-on, it has green at the top, it says updates. I just wanted to provide an update based on a meeting I attended yesterday with the head at NHED of the federal title grant system. The update is that there's been a lot of uncertainty about when we might come to know what our allocation is for any of these grants, or even if one was coming. The good news, as Ben said, is that IDEA has been awarded. The Title I funds have moved from USED to NHED, and they are now completing their allocation. So we're told we will get our Title I allocation, and that it will be comparable to previous years, and we should receive that allocation in about a week. The somewhat more discouraging news was around all of the other title grants, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Essentially, that money has not even been released by the federal government to USED. So we're not certain we'll get any allocation in those title grants this year. If we do, it's certainly not going to be by July 1st or anything like that. They were not even willing to hazard a guess as to whether those funds would be coming through this year.
What about food service?
That is USDA, so that's a different.
I have not heard anything one way or the other, so I'm not anticipating it, honestly.
Not anticipating an issue, or
think-
anticipating it will be fine?
Yes.
I think what we've heard pretty clear from our associations and Department Ed, there'll be no federal funding released without assurances that will to be filed. So I think there's that weight on there. So all of that assurances can hold for that piece. As Karen had said before, 2, 3, 4, and 5, they are entitlement grants, so from what we've heard from the attorneys and from our associations, it can't just be undone. There'd have to be some votes in Congress. So people do anticipate that it should get to us eventually in the schools. It may take people to do lawsuits. I mean, our Department of Ed is funded, each of those departments, Title II, Title III, Title IV, Title V, have staff in them too. So they're anxiously awaiting that money as well.
Can I just follow up? So just a quick calculation, Title II through V, that's about $160,000, so it's not overall as awful as losing other things could have been. But
Right.
because it is tied to staff,
And there's other grants, exactly.
and
Staff
we
would-
can't create those positions because of the supplement.
You could always move positions from title funds to general fund. You just never can move them back. But since our budget is set and our contracts are out, we have those positions already set for the budget.
Thank you.
What does that, sorry, what does that, if we don't get if the grant funding if the title funding doesn't come through position?
Right.
If-
We have if Title I has staff and IDA has staff. So we should be set for those positions if we go ahead to submit the assurances.
Right, but the other
ones are
and
just
we don't have any-
activities,
that's
except
right.
adult ed. And adult ed, we're still, since it's a mix between federal, state, and local, I couldn't put a guess on where we'd be, on how much money we'd have to make up. So the road ahead, we're focusing on what's sustainable. We're prioritizing our core mission. We're looking to diversify our funding sources. We've started this year to looking at our grant-funded positions to see if they could be moved into the general fund to be absorbed. We were able to do that with one position. The interventionist moved into a classroom position. Going forward, we have some things that we need to work out with the grant-funded positions. We've been told by the New Hampshire Department of Ed they need to be on one-year contracts, which is difficult when you have a collective bargaining agreement and seniority. So there's some things that we need to work out with the LEA. I think this board just needs to be ready to pivot, and we need to communicate transparently to our staff and our community.
Okay, we're going to talk about this some more in a minute. Does anybody have any questions right now?
What's the difference between the questions and the discussion?
No, I mean, it is questions. We have some additional information from our non-public, and so
got it,
I
okay.
will have more things to say after that.
Well,
but-
on a positive note, I would like to say that this presentation should be bound in gold and presented to all future board members and most of our constituents as well, but also, in all seriousness, this is enormously helpful and very clearly presented and very well sequenced and enormously helpful. So thank you to all involved in the production. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a true team effort.
I'm sure it was a lot of work, so it's much appreciated.
And it's something that we can put up on the website too, if people find that it's helpful for the community too, so they understand where the dollars are coming and going.
That would be very useful, especially given the conversations we are going to need having about this issue with the public.
Quickly, let's move on to 9A, unfinished business, sort of the second reading of policies. And a motion about those.
Yeah, I was just pulling it up. First, does anyone have any reason to pull out any of the other policies under 9A for discussion? Then I move that the school board pass policies, all the policies listed under 9A. I guess it's just passing them. Second reading.
Adopt.
Adopt, thank you. That's the word my brain could not come up with. Adopt the policies.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Richard, second by John. Does anyone have any questions? Any of these?
Could we just make sure that JFAB is titled correctly to international exchange students? I saw that throughout the policy, but the title in the agenda still
In the
says
agenda is still wrong.
foreign. I just want to make sure in the system
Absolutely.
titled correct.
That's fine. Good. All right, any additional observations? All right, all those in favor of adopting these? Great. Okay, we are going to take a non-public under,
I will make a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91A32L.
okay, motion by Richard, motion by John, I need a second. Second by Richard, I'm getting so used to it. All right, we do a roll call vote. Kevin? Jessica? Yes. Richard?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Joe?
Yes.
Carrie? Yes. Layla?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we will go into non-public and then we'll come back. All right, we're back. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order at 8:01. We are going to make a slight jump ahead in the agenda, and we're going to jump straight to 10:05 under new business to discussion and action on the general assurances. Can I get a motion?
I motion to discuss.
No, we're going to discuss no matter what.
We're doing? Sorry. I motion to jump ahead to 10:05.
So the motion needs to be either to, we have gotten various versions of letters from our lawyers about signing or not signing the general assurances. So we need a motion whether we're going to sign or not sign, and then we can talk about it. We don't have to. You don't have to make the motion either. Somebody has to.
I'll make a motion that we sign the general assurances.
Okay. John is making a motion that we sign the general assurances using the letter provided by our lawyer.
I actually didn't say that.
Oh, you're not going to say that?
No.
Oh, you just want to sign it by itself?
I just made a motion to sign the general
sorry.
assurances.
You're going to option 3. I had no idea.
Figure we needed a motion to have
Okay.
discussion.
A motion to sign the general assurances. Can I get a second? Okay, second by Jessica. Thank you. All right. So, just for those of you who are keeping score, so the general assurances are the assurances that every district signs every year, assuring the federal government that as part of taking federal funds, they will comply with federal law. That's the general assurance. There have been changes to the general assurances this year, including recent executive orders, and we have to decide whether we sign them or not. We do this every year.
So I would be, much appreciate the presentation on our federal grant funding that preceded this portion of the meeting. I would be in support of signing general assurances with addition of a cover letter provided to us. Do I need to read it, or do I simply? The best way to submit that as part of the discussion.
Well, let's just read it. It's 2 paragraphs, so it's short. Do you want to read it? Or I can read it. I'll read it. Okay. So enclosed is the executed general assurances requirements and definitions for participation in federal programs called the general assurances for the Lebanon School District. The district's practices, programming, and operations are, in my opinion, consistent with the United States Constitution and applicable federal law, statutes, and regulations. While the Lebanon School District has signed the general assurances as provided, we note that it is significantly broader than it has been in prior years and requires school district superintendents and school board chairs to certify compliance with policy interpretations which do not have the force and effect of law or even rulemaking. Many of the policy interpretations with which the New Hampshire DOE is mandating compliance have been enjoined by federal court orders, and there's a list of those. Accordingly, in executing the general assurances, the Lebanon School District certifies that it is in compliance with federal law, as informed by the United States Constitution, statute, federal regulations, and applicable case law, and the requirements of the general assurances as qualified or interpreted by applicable court orders or injunctions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would be in support of that versus a simple signing versus something else.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to kind of share something based on the presentation we had before of the understanding of what this federal money might be for our constituency so they understand, and please correct me, Tim, if I misspeak. Our general budget, and this is kind of just rounded numbers, is $55 million. 1.3 million of that is that federal grant money that we were discussing that was all laid out for us. And a portion of that we still have no assurances is coming at all for this upcoming school year. But 2 kind of significant figures, the Title I, which was about $380,000, and then the IDEA, which is about $430,000, totaling $810,000. But Tim, is that 380 from Title I that does include or does not include the food
Does not.
reimbursement.
But a third piece that's vital is how providing free and reduced lunches,
So,
which is additional. That's a different.
which is
program.
additional, let me
About
check that number for
$300,000.
everybody.
And Tim, in addition to the grant that's already in play now, we necessarily wouldn't be reimbursed for next year as well. So there's that additional
This-
funding that's currently under fiscal year '25 that goes through fiscal year '26 that we would not be able to access anymore.
So the current guesstimate of what it is for 2025, and like you said, not paid in full yet, is around 300. So if I just play with that number, adding up of 300, 380, 430, that gives us a $1.1 million that we would expect to just disappear from the district. So that numerically, we kind of all understand that's large enough to generally really affect our budgets. We still are likely to have to change things in the budget based on having no assurance or any communication about receiving some of the federal grant money, but that was significantly smaller pieces than these three large things of Title I, food services, and IDEA. So just to kind of put that in proportion of what's some of the conflict here.
Thank you. Good. Karen, did you want to say something?
It's a minor point in the grand scheme of things, but I did want to just clarify. Because we are able to roll some of the money from one year to the next, our actual pot of Title I money this year is around $450,000. So the numbers I was reflecting there are the amount that we're allocated annually. We didn't fully deploy it last year, so we have actually $450,000 this year. And some of that, if we were to be awarded Title I funds for FY26, but only if we were to be awarded them, would roll forward again to add on. So in other words, we would actually have
More
about
money.
$440,000 next year.
Okay.
I'm guesstimating.
So I mean,
because I don't know what the
somewhere
allocation
even to perhaps the 1.5 million range in our
Yeah.
guesstimate discussion is what we're talking about. Thank you. Okay.
All right, thanks. Other board members?
So I think like most of the other members of the board, I am deeply concerned with what signing the general assurances as they are so broadly written will mean for our students and our constituents, especially in absolute flood of very confusing and often contradictory statements coming from various levels of government. The cover letter that read aloud does, to a degree, make me feel a little better, especially in the clarification that in signing the general assurances, what we are saying is that we will comply with federal law as informed by the United States Constitution, federal regulations, applicable case law, as qualified or interpreted by applicable court orders or injunctions. Does this, in a sense, protect us from having to comply with illegal executive orders?
I would guess yes, to the extent that they are declared illegal.
And
But
just to
I
add,
am not
we've
a
always-
lawyer.
Like, when we've always signed general assurances, we always sign general assurances that we follow federal law. That's not the change in those insurances.
I think if we sign on to this, I will be more forcefully advocating for us to sign on to lawsuits.
Okay.
If we are going to say we are going to sign on to, all executive orders, then I think it suddenly becomes imperative that we fight the ones we think are deeply unjust.
Okay, Kevin?
Amy, so based on signing this version of the general assurances as well as attaching this letter, what would change in our current practices?
I think we will always put our students in the center of our practice, and nothing will change.
Thanks.
Will we be going forward? Should there also be a motion to going forward prepare in the budgeting process backup plans for the situation in which there are no federal funds.
I don't know if it needs to be a motion. It could be a directive that when we go through the budget process, you would like us to prepare a budget without federal funds.
Okay.
Joe, were you gonna?
I guess with this, since it sounds like we don't have guaranteed funding for some of these things if we sign, and we don't receive that funding, then we not have to comply.
We still would have to comply.
We'd still have to
'cause-
comply with federal law, but not the upcoming executive order that we don't know.
No, if we're signing, we'd have to comply with that. So
Regardless of
I
if
do
we receive the
anticipate we
funding.
will get allocations on 2 through 5 as reported in that grant. I don't think they're going to be in the timely manner that we would normally have them on July 1st. Those grants are, they can be, as Karen had articulated, there's stuff, the activities and stuff that we can plan out, so we can kind of push those activities back too. So we've been working closely with our partners at the Department of Ed to make sure we get some sort of guidance about the timeline.
Oh, you have something?
Please
All
go
right,
ahead.
I was just making sure I said my piece. I'm going to agree with Richard on, I do feel more comfortable with this as amended. And I would also feel more comfortable with being a little bit more proactive and forceful with any lawsuits as they might come forward. I think if we are going to sign this and we want to say, as interpreted by applicable court orders and injunctions, we have a responsibility to our students to then make sure those happen, that we are participating in that safety piece. That is one of our own safeguards for the students within this. So I would also become more forceful with that. You can go ahead.
I just want to very clearly state this is a very disingenuous presentation from the federal government in making us choose between providing for our students with some of that grant money, which also is still not as clear, and making us choose between leaving our students with uncertainty whenever we're signing onto something that doesn't actually state what the plan is here. And I it is an unfair choice. There is a lot to be said where I agree with T and Richard that we're all here serving on the school board to be advocates for students, and this is kind of dually coming up with us a representative duty to our constituency to not just throw away money. So I just kind of want to acknowledge how this isn't a light choice or a simple choice, but it is something where we are trying to consider the human impact that this will have.
I will say that I support signing the assurances with the letter as read, and one of the reasons that I do, there's several reasons, but one of which is because of taxpayers, but the other of which is I don't feel that this will change fundamentally any protections that we afford our students, and therefore I'm comfortable with that because our district is already complying with federal law. We continue to comply with federal law, and we continue to put students first. So I feel like this does not prohibit us from doing that. But I agree with you that it is a tenuous choice that we're being given. Carrie, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think this is kind of feeling hit with the bat in both directions. And I appreciate Amy. That's where my fundamental tug is that don't sign this, really do risk the money that they actually need. So I support signing this letter that we will continue to follow the law. I agree. I think we need to really look through legislation that comes out, fine tooth comb, matches as a body, and move there.
I appreciate that. I think just important following our state legislation and watching what's coming out of there. And for our students out there, knowing that They are our priority, and we will continue to provide a safe, welcoming school environment where every student in the Lebanon School District belongs.
Hearing the conversation, I just think it's important for the public to know that, I think there's a lot of question as to whether or not we should sign the general assurances, but I think an increase of 3% in the budget, which is basically what it is, without signing these assurances, is the position that we're in. Therefore, I'd like to amend my motion to sign the assurances with the letter as read.
I did. Second. As amended.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
I think we learn about checks and balances. Cool, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think we're discussing one of the ways that actually happens in the world, and so I appreciate the discussion.
Okay, so if there's no additional discussion, then we need to vote on the amended motion to sign the assurances with the letter as read. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, thank you all. That brings us back to new business 10-1, like 1 through 4, actually, the renovation things. Tim?
So there are bid results in your packet. Take them all together or whatever you want, but the first one is for renovation of classrooms. This is money that the board has approved coming out of Cap Reserve Fund. We've gone out to bid, and you can see that Oaks Construction, who we've worked with before, both on the project here at the high school and Hanover Street, and some of the classrooms, they've done this before, and they were the lowest bidder at $302,200 for those rooms and windows.
So we'll do them individually because I've got individual items on here. So we need a motion about these bids, and then we can ask any questions that we have.
Tim, when you do that, do you want to, like for item 1, should we say you're choosing this item, this vendor?
I recommend Oaks Construction. That's the vendor we'd like to go. So I'd like a motion to approve Oaks Construction for the renovation.
I so moved.
Okay, motion by Jessica. Can I get a second? Second by Layla. Okay. Any questions for Tim about these 2 renovations? Any additional information for us, or just why do you like Oaks?
And I can also say that these have been
Through FNF.
Came through FNF, and we've been with John, and so
Perfect.
yeah.
I would also, we don't necessarily recommend the lowest bidder. All 3 of these people obviously bid, but we've not worked with Monadnock or Triple Construction. And while we checked out some references, we know Oaks is a known entity and they're local.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any
For roof-
additional questions, or you have to vote on it, Harlan? Sorry. Any additional questions for Tim? All right. So the motion is to approve the renovation bid at MLS and IHSS by Oaks. Yes, is that right? Right. Okay. All those in favor? Great. Thank you. Next.
Another project that we need to put a roof on the high school cafeteria. There was an ad alt for the kitchen, but we're not doing this. So there were 4 bidders: Corolla Contracting, A.W. Terrian, Triumph, and Triple Construction. We've been working with we don't know any of these companies personally, but we've been working with like a roofing consultant who they make their money by the products they sell. So it's free service to the end user. And he's worked with most of these companies, and Corolla Construction came in the least. And so we're asking you to approve Corolla Contracting to put a roof on the school cafeteria.
Can we get a motion? And we can.
So moved.
Okay. Motion to approve Corolla by Jessica, second by Layla. So Corolla, I just have, so it says Therian, Triumph, Triple, and then Corolla, which it's the Corolla this.
It printed
Thank
off
you.
on 2 pages. I'm sorry.
I'm so confused. Thank you.
It confused me first when I looked at it.
Tim, will you just give a little bit of background on this project, just so folks know what it is that we're talking about here?
Well, we're trying to do the roof. The stuff that says roof deck replacement, masonry through wall flashing, PT wood blocking replacement, despite the spelling errors. So we are going to try a different product. So
And why do we need to redo the roof?
sorry.
Why do we need to redo the roof?
Oh, well, we have a roof. We have a roof inventory that FNF has seen and many have seen, and so we have a list of our roofs when they were put in, and then this consultant has gone around and done some checking with infrared and just visual to see what roofs are the worst. And this roof is it's been, I think, 30 years, but it's most importantly, it's not in a good state. It's got a lot of ponding on it. It needs to be replaced. So this project is a little bit more extensive than just putting new membrane down is where I was going. Most of our roofs are like rubber roofs. This is actually a different product that is not a membrane. It's not shingle either. It's a 30-year roof. The membrane's a 20-year roof. The one company we've used for a lot of our roofs wouldn't even bid. They only do membranes is the point. So although their price, they gave us a bid that was not the specs for a membrane, their price was a little cheaper. Cost it out over for a 10-year long. It's actually, so.
And this is paid for out of the,
Cap reserve, I believe.
capital reserve fund.
Right. These first two projects are cap reserve projects.
Can I
So we'll have a public hearing after they're done to take them.
Can I ask a quick question? What based on 7-900 estimate from Nick means?
Nick is the roof consultant, and I should have asked John. I'm not sure what
For John.
7 to 900 means.
Okay.
I think that's a square footage number, but Nick is our roof consultant
Okay.
from Triumph Roofing, or not Triumph. One of the
Okay, any other questions? All right, all those in favor of accepting the bid from Corolla Contracting? Okay, great, thank you.
These next two projects are in the budget that you guys approved.
Okay.
LHS rooms 202, 203, and 204 getting new floor replacement. Byron's flooring was the cheapest, as you can see. We've used them a lot. We've used, well, here's Oaks bid, but they're not always the winner. We've used all three of these companies, but Byron's has done well, and their bid was the lowest, so we're recommending Byron's flooring.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Jessica, second by Layla. Any additional questions? Okay, all those in favor? Excellent.
So maybe you should have taken this one first, because to replace the flooring, we have to abate some asbestos. The flooring that's there is asbestos, and it's generally good shape, but if you were in those rooms, like there's some parts I think that have rugs on them, so you can make sure asbestos is safe if the tiles are cracking by covering it up. So we want to just get it out. So before we can put the new flooring down, we have to abate the asbestos, and Apex Abatement was the low bidder on this. It's $33,322.
Now, I noticed the note here that includes a change order to work second shift after summer school hours.
Right.
The original bid was $23,674, which is significantly lower.
Correct. So we were like, yay, but then we said, hey, can you work around summer school? And they said, yeah, and so they still came in lower, but it is going to cost more because they have to work second shift and quicker after summer school. But it helps us out a lot.
So, I was going to say, so presumably it's a very disruptive.
Yeah, when you, I don't think necessarily summer school is going to be in these rooms or near these rooms, but it's still, I know from experience, it can be very psychologically not great to go into a building and there's plastic up and it's taped off and it says asbestos do not cross. So this just gets the work out of the way when people aren't around.
Okay.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Jessica to accept the bid by Apex, second by Layla. Okay, any additional information or discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, discussion and action, we're at 10.6, approval of $10,000 anonymous donation towards lunch debt.
So we received a very generous anonymous donation for $10,000 to go toward our school lunch debt to pay negative school meal balances. So as Tim talked about, we often carry those balances over.
Great. Want to thank our anonymous donor. We're very grateful to them for their and proactivity helping us with that. Any questions about that? We just need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept the $10,000 anonymous gift to pay off the student lunch tent.
Motion by John, second by Layla. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great, thank you. All right, moving on to approval of a $2,000 donation from the American
Sure, I think this actually would just be an acknowledgement, according to our policy. But I'd like to thank the American Legion Post 22 for the generous donation of $2,000 to go to the Lebanon High School softball team.
I'd like to echo that. Thanks. You want to have a question, Richard?
No, I was just saying that's lovely of them.
It is very lovely of them. We appreciate their donation, and we just acknowledge their donation because we approve it. Great. Next, we have a letter, an area letter that was written by one of the superintendents of one of our area schools, talking about open enrollment and its effect on our area agreement. And so we had an area meeting this week, and she asked if we would like to sign on to the letter as representatives from the area agreement. And per discussions we've had in the past, we didn't want to sign something until we had everyone read it over. So this is the letter, and it's talks specifically about why we oppose. We've talked about opposing open enrollment, but talks specifically about opposing open enrollment because of complications that it would cause for our longstanding and well-functioning area agreement with our attending schools.
I will go ahead and move that we sign this.
Okay, motion by Richard. Second by Tia. Additional questions? Concerns?
So this has not been sent yet?
Nope.
What would the process be to amend?
I mean, we could probably just let Sydney know that we wanted to amend something. She hasn't sent it yet. So the only other issue is the other schools have gotten the same draft, right? So they might have to go back and look at it again, depending on what they've decided as a board.
I know that June 5th is a big day in legislation, so the timeliness of this letter, people were looking to see if we could get this sent out tomorrow.
I think I like a lot of the, I really appreciated the area conversation. I really appreciated the discussion. I think the letter's a good idea. I think that there are a few buzzwords in here that I was a little bit unclear on their relevance, which I'm not sure that's, given the timeliness issue. I think that I've really liked the short letters that we have that are very simple and very streamlined. I think that there's more in this than feels a little. There's a lot there. I think there. So
The motion is to accept or not, so we can.
You can abstain, right?
I guess I'm raising it because if there are others who share those concerns, then I am inviting that discussion, because I think I prefer a short letter that states a position rather than something that elaborates a lot on perspectives, et cetera, that are not necessarily shared by all.
The length of the letter concerns me less, considering the amount of legislation, particularly regarding open enrollment, that has been going through a lot of different variations. I can see what you mean, that it's always nice to have a succinct, punchy, we're opposed. I don't have any problems with any of this language, particularly with the ending of, we're upholding the principles of equity, local control, and strong public education. So I don't have any problems with the letter, or reservations, I should say.
Can I just ask, is it going to all state legislators, senators, and House members? It's very esteemed state legislators. It's a very large group.
Yeah, I think it's going to our state legislatures.
Our state
Yeah, that's what she had said, that so go our representatives and our senators.
And has Grantham and Plainfield taken action on the letter yet?
Plainfield, as far as I know, has already agreed to sign, and I believe Grantham has as well.
Correct.
Ours happened.
I think a lot of the conversation had at the was not to take a strong position in one direction or another, but to put out there, this has worked really well, and why we don't to offer more. I'm
So it would just be signed, I'm a little unclear. Right now, it's from you, right?
It's from the school board chairs, but I'm not going to sign unless my board supports it. So I wouldn't be, that's why it's here, because I wouldn't sign it. I could have just signed it on your behalf, but I don't want to do that. So I brought it here. Any additional comments?
I have no reservations with signing it.
Ready to vote? Okay. So at the motion, what was, have a motion?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So many motions today, I'm losing track. All right, thank you. So motion to sign the letter as written. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So 8 and 1 abstention. All right, thank you. So we will go ahead and sign that and send it on. Okay, discussion and action. This is 10-9. 5-day rollover for SAU administrators vacation time.
So with, for the SAU administrators, which includes myself, Tim, Karen, and Ben, we can roll over 5 days of our vacation time if we have not used it. So I believe 3 out of the 4 of us will be requesting this 5 days to roll over. Our intention is always to try to tell them to take their vacation time, and so hopefully we'll take some time this summer.
I'll make a motion to approve the 5-day rollover for SAU administrators.
Motion by John, second by Layla. Any additional questions? I mean, I would like to reiterate that I would like everyone to take their vacation time at all times, whenever they can. That would be great for everybody, I think. But yes, any other questions, comments? All right, all those in favor? Unanimous, excellent. All right, and last, discussion and action to approve authority for the superintendent to hire staff through August 2025. So this is something we do every year because, as you know, we normally approve nominations, resignations, hiring. Over the summer, we don't meet, or we don't meet as frequently or meet at all, and so we usually grant the superintendent this power at some point near the end of the year so that the summer hiring that happens, they have the authority to those. They will present them to us when we come back so that we know what's happened, but we grant them that power. That's great. Okay. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we allow the superintendent to hire over the summer.
Motion by John. Oh, Carrie. Okay, motion by John, Carrie, second by Carrie. Any questions? All right, all those in favor? Great. The power. Okay. I'd like to open back up public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? There appears to be none. Is there any online?
There's 4 people online. If you would like to speak in public comment, please raise your hand.
Seeing none?
None, seeing
All
none.
right, we'll close public comment. All right, committee updates. I wanted to congratulate all the committees that met for getting your minutes in to Emma and getting them into the packet. Appreciate that. It's very helpful for everyone who's not in those committees, so good job. Let's keep that going. FNF met on May 19th. Did you want to tell us anything?
Yep, we had a good meeting. We provided some feedback on the draft policy FBC. We had a good discussion about that. We had a preview of the end of year project list, which I think will be coming in June meeting.
June 11th.
Yep, and we had a good discussion about sort of some possible rearranging of that and maybe additions, end of year project list. And we talked about the roof and the other bit.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. The policy committee met on May 5th. We already talked about that. Next meeting is June 2nd at 8:15 a.m. at SAU. EC met on May 8th.
Minor
Yes.
addition, because that meeting, the June 2nd meeting, we are getting this Friday, God willing,
God willing.
the updates to do with the 306s.
Okay.
So I will be doing a last-minute change to the agenda. I will be changing the agenda throughout the week.
Okay.
Please stay tuned.
Policy, stay tuned. Okay, great. Thank you. EC, the next meeting is September 11th at 12 p.m. at the SAU. PNN, didn't you guys have a meeting
Not yet.
recently?
Not yet.
Okay, next meeting is June 2nd at 4:30 p.m. at the SAU. SWAC met on May 7th. Next meeting is TBD. HACTC's next meeting is in the fall of
Actually,
2025.
the next meeting is tomorrow at 10 o'clock
Yeah,
in the
they did it
morning
in
because we're having an emergency meeting.
To
Oh.
vote on something for them.
Yeah,
Okay.
Erica Schneider contacted us and let us know that an opportunity has come up for them to transfer a district asset solely to the HACC, which seems to be some land on Christian Street, which is about 5 minutes away from the school. It says the land's vital resource for the Natural Resources Program, and
Okay.
we'll get more information at that meeting.
Great. Okay, thanks. Keep us updated. Area committee, we met on May 20th. You heard most of what we talked about.
Nope, we've met the new superintendent of Grantham, Christine Downing.
Superintendent Grantham has a new superintendent. Plainfield and Cornish are in the process of hiring a new superintendent. And we are keeping our superintendent. Right. All right. The school district and city task force is meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. at City Hall. Future agenda items, board member recommendations or questions? All right, school board, next important district dates and district announcements. Our next school board meeting is June 11th at 6:30 p.m. And thank you to everyone who responded to me about your dates on the 16th and the 17th. So we're actually going to change that following meeting, the June 18th, which is our retreat, to June 16th, since there is not also an FNF meeting that day now. So that will be June 16th at, I guess, still 6.
Yeah, we could do 6 if.
Whatever
people
works
so-
best for people. That's
So the 18th is moving to
16th. Yes.
What would be better for people, and
Yeah.
I can order sandwiches.
We meet the 25th?
The 20th.
5th of June?
No. Does anyone have a preference on time for the 18th? That's our retreat. There can be sandwiches.
The budget's closed.
Budget is not closed for sandwiches. I can bring
I'm sorry,
sandwiches.
this is on June 16th,
June 16th.
and then the time is,
We're talking about the time right now,
Okay.
deciding what time works better for people, since it's a switch.
I prefer working hours, but I know many work. So if that's not the case, I can work out childcare, but.
Okay.
Nobody left it.
Other preferences?
We always cancel the meeting second, fourth.
Yeah, that's we sent out that big calendar in the beginning, like in April, that had all the dates from now until the end of the school year, and we decided not to meet because we're going to have a break from the middle of June all the way till the middle of August.
Great.
It's also the superintendent conference.
Superintendent conference is that next week.
Okay, great. All right.
Yeah.
So the meeting on the 11th and the 16th of June, and those are our meetings. And you're you're saying one of them is our board retreat.
The 16th is our retreat.
16th is our retreat, and what's the agenda for the
We'll make board goals.
board goals? Okay.
So time, Layla has expressed a preference for earlier rather than later. Are there other preferences?
Earlier, like 6 versus 6:30?
She's expressed like earlier than
1
5, but
PM, but that's probably not something that works for
Yeah.
folks that have day jobs, so.
right.
And, you know, my child's dinner time is 5. So 6 is probably the earliest I can do, I'm afraid.
6? Okay. 6. And Carrie might bring her kids, and my kids might babysit them. So we're gonna,
Wait, is that an option?
Sure.
Can I bring an extra 3-year-old?
Sure. Okay, great. Any other business? No, all right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, Richard, motion to adjourn. Can I get a
Second.
second?
Second.
Second by John. All those in favor?